Yeah,
getting
we're
myself hungry, and it's
going live.
Fajita
You know
Friday,
why we're
so,
going
like,
live? You know why we are live? WinDailySports.com, at WinDailySports on Twitter, because Ghost and I just started talking about chicken nuggets and how phenomenal they are. McDonald's chicken nuggets too, by the way.
Bomb.
Ghost, what is your
So
what's your go-to sauce, buddy? Everybody has
Sweet
a
and
go-to
sour.
sauce.
Sweet and sour.
Oh,
Sweet and sour by far. It's so good. Oh my god.
that's
Now I'm
lovely.
starving.
That's lovely. Now I want some
Oh,
barbecue
man.
sauce. You know what I mean? Like now I want a little bit of barbecue sauce with it. I
Yeah.
love their buffalo sauce, which is amazing. Oh, their buffalo sauce is incredible. But yeah, what else is amazing? Not just McDonald's chicken nuggets and us talking about it and us eating them. But this beautiful thing. You've been talking about it all day, and like immediately the minute you came on here, you said we have about 5,000 plays. Not the pricing 5,000, but legitimately you could put probably 5,000 players in your lineups. This is becoming one of those kind of slates where you're really liking it. Why, first of all, is that the case?
There's just so many options, and I love that compared to a lot of people don't like it, and that's exactly why I do, if that makes sense, because a lot of people don't know where to go because there's so many different options, and people end up being a little scared of planting their flag somewhere, and a lot of people end up turning towards balanced lineups, or they're scared that all this chalk value ends up busting or anything like that. And I just eat it up, man. There's so many good plays on this slate, and once you end up solidifying which guys you want to build around, and you just end up trying to get a core 4, probably even go up to 5 on a slate like this, and you just mix and match the last different 3 and then you just end up mix and matching the last 3 spots. I don't think we have, so maybe we'll do it like a Fab 5 on Fajita Friday or something. We'll do like 4 Fs and make that a sentence or something. I don't know. We're gonna have to turn into a headline.
Yeah,
the Fajita Friday Fab 5 or something. I don't know.
Have you ever heard Diners, Drives, and Dives, the Guy Fieri show?
Oh my god,
that's what we're gonna do.
Okay, we're still talking about food. I'm starving.
Yeah, the triple F.
Talking about food.
Fajita Friday 5.
I love that show. Yeah, we got to make it like.
Have you ever just sat down and watched that show for hours?
Fajita Friday Fab 5.
Yes, that's what we're doing.
That's what we're doing. The free Fajita Friday Fab 5.
This is already off the rails. This is what a Friday show does to you here in the NBA DFS Preview show with my guy Ghost. My name is Jon Jansen. Follow him, the God, the NBA DFS, just absolute machine at DFS_Ghost, and you can follow me just for really terrible tweets and also some betting advice on baseball because I'm actually doing all right at that. I got the Braves on the money line right now at JJansen34. NBA slate though. I think where you definitely are going right away. I saw you. I know Detroit, one of those, because we saw some injuries already come in. And so you are already able to find some value. So does this mean automatically that we could put some top guys in like Russell Westbrook?
Yeah, so that the first games, 2 out of the 3 of them at least, are really, really intriguing to me, being New Orleans and Washington and OKC versus Detroit. And you end up looking on such a big slate. If everyone was healthy, it'd be fairly easy to cross off a Detroit Pistons versus Oklahoma City Thunder game. That's for sure. It's going to be really slow pace. It's going to be a low total. But when you end up having 7 Detroit Pistons out tonight, whether it be for COVID reasons or for injury reasons or just for rest reasons because of the amount of veterans that they have on that team, you end up going right to it, and you have some really, really affordable plays they're going to log some heavy minutes. So the key here is that it's tough to nail them down individually without having that starting lineup to kind of end up seeing what the rotations end up looking like, right? So that's why you got to head over to WinDailySports.com. We have our proprietary projections model there. And when the Detroit lineup ends up getting confirmed, that's when it'll end up rerunning the rotations for Detroit, and you'll see a bunch of minutes going up and down and projections reflecting exactly those changes, right? So I'm going to wait for that to happen. But just off the top, I mentioned Josh Jackson in my article today. And the main reason why I did it was just to end up, kind of grouping in those 4 guards together, being Josh Jackson, Hamidou Diallo, Saben Lee, and rookie Killian Hayes, right? So this backcourt, we really want to see who ends up starting here, especially at the point guard position between Saben Lee and Killian Hayes. The one thing is that even if Saben Lee starts, I do have interest in Hayes. Detroit knows that, they drafted him fairly high and they want to see what they have in this kid, right? So he was out for pretty much the majority of the first half of the season. They know that they're not playing anything. They have all of 10 wins on the season. You know what I mean? So they're pretty much playing for first overall draft pick, if anything. But this is a Pistons team where they want to see what they have in Killian Hayes to, kind of evaluate their team in the future there, right? So Between him and Saban Lee, I'm definitely going to have at least one of them in my lineup. Right now, I just put Killian Hayes in my mock lineup because if you want to go Saban Lee, well, he's $400 cheaper and $3,100 on DraftKings. So it's just to end up going there, it's a no-brainer for me. And then you have the other two guys that I mentioned in Hamidou Diallo and Josh Jackson. And then you look at the front court and Mason Plumlee's out. So you have fantasy point per minute machine and Isaiah Stewart likely getting the spot start at the center position there versus Moses Brown, who on the flip side is a great play as well. Personally, I do like him a bit better on FanDuel. He's $1,000 cheaper over on FanDuel. So on DK, I'm likely not going to play Moses Brown just because of that $6,200 price tag that's there. I'm not really flirting with the mid-range all that much. There's a ton of value on this slate. I want all the studs that can, I want three guys to combine for 200 just like we did the other night. So lather, rinse, repeat here. And my value starts with this Detroit Pistons roster.
Yeah, it definitely starts there. And not just Detroit, but we're also looking just for value terms here at Toronto as well because of injuries. Yeah,
absolutely. So this is a Toronto Raptors team, obviously my representing my country, of course, and it's tough, man, for them right now. Siakam's out for rest. OG's out for rest. Kyle Lowry's nursing a pretty bad injury. Fred VanVleet is the automatic chalk play of the slate, right? So if you are playing cash on a slate like this, you need Fred VanVleet. You don't care if he puts up 5 points or if he puts up 500. You just need him because he's going to be 90% owned in cash games. He's pretty much the only member of the starting five that's going to be out there. So you definitely need Fred in your cash game lineups. Personally, I don't know if I'm going to get there in GPP on DraftKings. On FanDuel, I'll likely end up pairing Fred VanVleet with one of my favorite players in the league and in NBA DFS specifically in Bradley Beal. Both of them are really underpriced. But on DraftKings specifically with just the way that DK operates, it's a real puzzle piece. So you got to be able to move things around. And right now, I don't know if Fred VanVleet's going to be in my main lineup. Obviously, it wouldn't be too bad of a thing because he's just going to take 25 shots and do his thing out there. So that's fine. And obviously, the backcourt partner that he's going to run with tonight is Malachi Flynn, right? So we saw what he's been doing pretty much starting for Kyle Lowry in the past week or so. And he's averaging 35 DK per game. Price has definitely got up there at 6,200. But again, this is a cash play, right? So for us, we don't really care what he produces. If he's going to be 90% owned, if he puts up 5 points or he puts up 50, it doesn't matter. You're not moving the needle with Malachi Flynn. You got to end up getting different in a couple other spots. So this is another guy where in GPP, I'm not really afraid to fade him just because of that price tag. Similarly to Moses Brown, he's definitely going to be in my main lineup on FanDuel where he's $1,000 cheaper there. But over on DK, you could end up slotting in a ton of these Raptors guys in your cash game lineup, specifically Fred VanVleet and Malachi Flynn. And for tournaments, the one guy that I am looking at for value is going to be Khem Birch. So I know a lot of people will likely go to Chris Boucher again, and rightfully so. It's a good matchup. Vooch is obviously out in Chicago now, so things open up in the paint there for Chris Boucher tonight. But just with Fred in the backcourt, Malachi Flynn getting some touches, and you have so many different wing options there, I don't feel the need to pay $7,100 for Chris Boucher, hoping that he has one of those games where he gets 4 steals and 6 blocks, because that's what you need to put up 50 points. If you're getting a 50-point Chris Boucher night, it's because he put up 4 steals and 6 blocks. Like, it's one of those. So I'm not really going to chase that. I'd rather pay half the price and go all the way down to Khem Birch, who is in the exact same spot as him, starting alongside Chris Boucher in the exact same matchup for half the price.
So what it seems like here on this slate, there's just a ton of value. So is it a lot of mix and matching and basically looking at ownership and see how you can get contrarian? That feels like where we're kind of going with this one, because this slate, as you've been kind of pointing out, there seems to be a lot of value on it. So you can mix and match. Obviously, you're going to have your core, but can mix and match the value to kind of be a little bit contrarian.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you end up seeing the Detroit starting lineup that's going to come out pretty soon. We're an hour before tip or just above that. So that lineup's going to come out soon. And, you end up getting the news that Killian Hayes is starting. Well, Saban Lee is just as viable as a pivot, right? So if you end up thinking that everyone's going to play Killian Hayes, or that's what the ownership shows with our optimizer over at WinDailySports.com, if it's showing that everyone's playing Killian Hayes, well, Saban Lee is not exactly a bad pivot. You know what I mean? He's in the exact same spot, and both these guys are likely going to see 25 minutes each. It's not like Killian Hayes is going to play 40 minutes with the amount of time that he missed this season, and it's not like Saban Lee isn't going to touch the court either, right? So it's spots like that where you don't even have to change games. You don't even have to change positions sometimes, where you just end up same team, same position, and you end up rotating these guys. You're playing Josh Jackson one lineup, put Hamidou Diallo in a second one, and then you end up using that $1,000 to upgrade elsewhere, right? So you're definitely right in the fact that you can mix and match these guys, and all of them are around the same price, so it's fairly easy to do so. It's just, again, it's all about that puzzle piece. So for me, I always backload my lineups where guard, forward, and utility are going to be in the later games. I'm still going to use that strategy tonight to the best of my abilities. But when I'm first building my main lineup, what I'm going to do is that I'm going to put my core 5 in as many positions as I can in those early slots. That way, you know what, if I want to pivot late, then I'll end up having that flexibility. But there's certain guys like Russell Westbrook that no matter what happens, Russ is going to be in my lineup.
Yeah. Okay. So I guess let's go with the core here. Because I know we were talking about, a triple F Fajita Friday 5. Yeah. We could go with the core 5 if we really wanted to. But Russell Westbrook obviously starts that. Is Fred VanVleet also? I mean, we're seeing here from Derek, Raptors only have 9 for tonight. So would that mean Fred VanVleet is just automatically in the core because he's just going to be the primary shooter for a team that's not going to have many scores on the floor?
Yeah, he's not going to make my core tonight just because I'm still waiting on some other value pieces, and I really want to end up seeing what the rotations look like with our projection model afterwards. So even right now, I can't even firmly give all 5 plays just because I really need those rotations. But one of the 5 is 100% going to be Russell Westbrook. So I end up doing a bit of digging, and we're looking at some odds. Of course, Vegas. We like to think that Vegas knows what they're doing. They're pretty successful good at this. In the business. Yeah. They're pretty good at what they do, right? So if you look at Russell Westbrook's odds to triple double tonight. You're not looking at any props. You're looking at Russell Westbrook to triple-double. It's at minus 225.
No way.
Minus 225, up to minus 275 on some books.
That's ridiculous.
So the lowest that I saw it was minus 175. And the highest I saw it was minus 275.
There was a time this year when it was plus 200 a night, right?
Yeah.
Like it was like plus 230 a night.
Yeah.
That's insane.
It's you can't not play Russell Westbrook tonight. Pelicans are bottom 10 in assist rate versus primary ball handlers. They're bottom 10 in rebounding to guards, and they're bottom 5 against combo guards, so those that can shoot the ball and pass the ball as well. And they're second worst in the league versus primary ball handlers, period, from a fantasy perspective. Like any box that you want to check off, Russell Westbrook checks that box tonight. 10 triple doubles in the past 11 games. I'll say that again. 10 triple doubles in the past 11 games. And his rebounds and assist prop, which I'm still taking the over on. Life's too short for unders. I never bet unders. Saying that word makes me nauseous. So I only bet overs. You will never see me ever post an under bet, ever. Russell Westbrook's rebounds and assist prop is 24.5. We're not even talking about his points. He's going to drop 20 tonight. Good. Like, it's automatic.
That's good.
It's automatic that he's dropping 20 points. Like, it's a damning of why Russell Westbrook's going to drop 20 points, especially in a game where the total is 240 points and New Orleans is the second worst team versus primary guards. The worst team is Washington. So it's like this is as good of a matchup that he can get because he can't play his own team. So it's just, I don't understand how you don't play Russell Westbrook tonight. There's a lot of star power on this one. You got Joker, you got Doncic. I wouldn't really include Towns in the group tonight going up against Bam Adebayo, but still, you have Joel Embiid. Zion on the other side of this game is going to be, a great play. Vooch is in a good spot with Zach LaVine out, but for I'm going all the way up to the top of the pricing grid. I'm locking in Russell Westbrook no matter what tonight. There's no way that I'm not playing Russ.
And yeah, you've mentioned a few players that you are kind of pairing him with. Is this a lot of stars? Are we going, with a lot of these top guys and then mixing in the value with Detroit and Toronto, basically?
Yeah, so ideally I would like to fit 3 of them. But now where news has kind of hit that Kawhi Leonard got ruled out since we came on.
Wow.
So that's pretty big. Yeah, it's pretty big for me.
They all feel this. Fear the Sixers, baby. That's all it is. They all feel the Sixers.
Kawhi's out, and now we have PG-13 that's questionable as well. So this is a spot where I do think Paul George ends up playing in this one. I don't really see how he doesn't play. But if he doesn't, then it's value city in the Clippers game too. And then on the flip side, you could cross off all the Philly stars as well because, I'm not playing Joel Embiid hoping that he drops 40 points against Reggie Jackson and
right in 3 quarters.
No, it's just you can't. At that point, you're playing 3 quarters. It's like stacking a baseball game that's 7 innings on a doubleheader. Like you're limited. You're taking away one of your at bats for no reason, right? So
now I did hear Tobias Harris was doubtful. Does that give any value, or is it just all Joel Embiid basically? And it's too hard to to put anybody in because of Joel.
It's really tough, especially in that front court. Guys like Mike Scott, and any one of those guys, Matthias Thybulle, and any one of them, I'm not really keen on playing them in DFS. They're good basketball players, and they're going to help in the playoffs. But and from a DFS perspective, unless you're hoping for 5 steals from Thybulle because he's starting again, like that's just you got to hope for that, right? So I'm not really interested in one of these guys, especially with how big the slate is and so many different value options with guys that are starting and guys that are playing 25 to 30 minutes. I'm likely not touching the 76ers rotation at all. If there is one
we're going
guy,
with the Clippers, right?
Yeah, that's the spot where, you know what, things kind of change in the sense that, you know, you have a $4,400 Isaiah Stewart. All of a sudden, I get it, it's not the same position, but like I was saying, DraftKings is a puzzle piece. You end up moving a couple things around. All of a sudden, guys like Marcus Morris, guys like Reggie Jackson, guys like Terrence Mann, Luke Kennard, all these guys are in play now, and they're all $5,000 or around that, right? So it ends up changing things up a little bit. I likely won't get to any one of these guys, but again, if the last man in your build is Luke Kennard at 4,700 instead of, you know, so like if we're talking about a 5% owned guy that's going to end up playing 30 minutes for a starting 5 in LA tonight, that's what we're talking about pivots when we end up talking about chalk options like the Detroit roster, like the Toronto roster, etc.
Man, yeah, because I guess the late news, you would probably be getting you would be going contrarian a little bit if you get, let's say, a Luke Kennard in or Morris. Of course. Is that kind of now, because we could go over a million of these plays. So to kind of stick with a general thought to help out, because obviously we'll go into some of them, but a general thought is just try and be different with a lot of your lineups today, because there are so many value options to go along with Russell Westbrook, basically.
Yeah, exactly. Like that would be the main thing that I could preach tonight. It's that, you know, don't feel the need to play the overhyped or over-owned value play. There's so many of them. Like it was the same thing the other night when Nick Claxton was 30%. And we got Hassan Whiteside at 3%. Like, why are we playing a 30% on Nick Claxton, who's 3,100? Hassan Whiteside is 3,400 in a better matchup. Okay, he's coming off the bench, and Nick Claxton was also coming off the bench in that game too. But it's just worse matchup, heavier ownership. Like at that point, you're hoping that your 3K punt outscores another 3K punt. Like it's not like you're completely changing your lineup structure where, you know, we're going to have all 8 different players on DraftKings. Like, no, somebody could easily have our core 5 and then 3 different value plays versus my 3 different value plays versus your 3 different value plays versus everybody, right? So that's where you end up sticking to the core, and you really mix and match things where, you know what, you just got to hope that, you know, someone like Kem Birch outscores Isaiah Stewart. It's very feasible, honestly, like this. All these guys are in good spots, and all of them are going to see a ton of minutes. So in terms of that, one guy, if we do go with the start where, you know what, people are worried about the Detroit rotation, anything like that, and you want to end up slotting in Fred VanVleet, well, the perfect pivot to that would be CJ McCollum. Exact same price. Damian Lillard now questionable. People might not wait for that news out there in Portland. It's at 8:30. The Toronto game's at 7:30. You have an hour difference, and there's nobody to pivot to. If Dame is in, there is nobody to pivot to. So this is the play where you could end up taking a risk like that on a slate like this. You end up throwing it in a 3 max, anything like that. You got to end up making some kind of decision where you're taking a chance to get first. If you're playing to minimum cash, that's fine. Take the safe roster, end up going with Fred VanVleet in the early game. He's still going to do great in this game. But I'm talking about it again. Put yourself in this scenario where you have 7 out of 8 players the exact same, and you end up having Fred VanVleet in one lineup versus CJ McCollum in the other. That's a very feasible one-on-one battle that you can win and jump thousands of people at a time, right? So it's little pivots like that where you end up working your lineup and you see a player that's 3,500, 5,000, all the way up to 8,000, anything like that. And you're saying, okay, who is a possible pivot if I want to get different in this one individual spot? And for me at the shooting guard spot, Fred VanVleet 7,900, it's CJ McCollum at 8,000. Dame ends up getting ruled in this game. We shot ourselves in the foot. It's going to take a lot for CJ McCollum to have a better game than Damian Lillard. I'm always on the Dame train every single night. It's Dame over CJ for me. But when Dame all of a sudden popped up questionable in a spot like this, if we don't have that news before the Toronto game at 7:30, everyone's playing Fred VanVleet. No one's playing CJ McCollum. And you're just hoping that one guy in CJ McCollum can outscore Fred VanVleet. And I would take that. I would take that chance 7 days out of 7. It's very feasible on any given NBA slate that CJ McCollum outscores Fred VanVleet. And you would just apply that thought process to every single position in your lineup.
Yeah, that seems like a really good play, actually. WinDailySports.com. Obviously, go into the chat because now there are so many different lineup combinations that you can go through. And so plenty of options. And that's why you probably need plenty of eyes to be looking at it to make sure you have the right ones. Watanabe, is he one of those options, though?
Yeah, of course. Every single Toronto Raptors in play tonight, whether it's guys like you can name them all, they're all in play. The one thing that has me worried just a little bit is that this is a very winnable game for Toronto, despite being down to a 9-man rotation and without pretty much essentially their entire starting
Orlando's
five, with the exception of Orlando is that bad, right? So this is a game where you have a Toronto team that's playing to get a spot in that play-in round, right? So at the same time, if Orlando ends up keeping this one close, a lot of these guys are not going to see the floor. It's Nick Nurse is going to run the same 5 to 6 man rotation throughout the entire crunch minute time, right? So at the same time, I'm okay with Utah just because he has a spot on the wing there and Nick Nurse really trusts him versus somebody like Aaron Baines. I'm not really sure. You end up getting somebody like Gillespie who could come in for Boucher, and you have Kem Birch on top of that in the front court. They could always go smaller and run Stanley Johnson at the 4. Utah could play the 4. So I would be careful more so with the front court situation and guys like Aaron Baines and whatnot versus Toronto's roster on the wing and in the backcourt. Like we know Malachi Flynn and Fred VanVleet tonight are going to play 36 minutes or more.
Yeah.
Fred VanVleet's probably going to play over 40 minutes. Like it's just they can't be able to take him off the floor because that's when Orlando has 1 or 2 good scores that they could end up doing some damage and they could lose a game that it is really theirs to lose. Like Toronto needs to win this game. I get it's a 2.5 spread. It's Vegas still has it as a tight one, but they need this game to make a playoff push.
Yeah, they do. And so we're going through a ton of value options. So we have Russell Westbrook. And who are those options again? Because I know we went through that really quickly. The top options now. The guys that you're likely going to build around your lineups with you guys like Watanabe and all of that.
I really like Zion in the spot. And especially with the amount of options that are up there in that 10K range. No one's going to play Zion at 10K tonight. This is a guy that his player props at 29.5 tonight. It's right up there with the highest of the entire slate. 8th in the league in scoring, dominates the paint. Washington is bottom 5 in points allowed in the paint. Whether it's Alex Len out there or Robin Lopez or anybody else that they play at the 5, Washington just doesn't have that defense, right? So this is a game that Washington plays at the fastest pace in the NBA. New Orleans can play at that pace. They showed it last year with Stan Van Gundy being under the helm now. They kind of slowing down their pace up until the past couple months. Now they kind of started, playing a bit more running gun, similarly to what they were doing last season, and really seeing what they have in Brandon Ingram and Zion Williamson and Lonzo Ball and a bunch of these other guys, right? Like these guys are tailor-made to end up playing the game fast. They don't want to play a methodical 24-second shot clock and really taking the time, right? So in a game like this where you have Russell Westbrook pushing up and down the court every single time, New Orleans is going to do that on the flip side, and Zion's going to be that guy in the paint all day long. The rebounding opportunities are going to be there on top of that, at least on the defensive end, because of the amount of shots that New Orleans take. And on FanDuel specifically, you could full on stack this one with Bradley Beal as well. Like we talked about it on last show, where if there's ever a game environment where Bradley Beal and Russell Westbrook can both have ceiling games, it would be in that Sacramento Kings game. And it was exactly that. If Bradley Beal didn't shoot 40% from the field, and he just shot closer to his season average of 45 to 50%, he was on his way to a 60-point DraftKings night, just like Russell Westbrook dropped 69 DraftKings points, right? So the two of them can absolutely go off. Bradley Beal taking 25 shots again last game. The game before that took 31 shots, and it doesn't stop Russell Westbrook. It doesn't stop Russell Westbrook from getting a triple-double, right? So yeah. They're combining for 50 shots. If you want exposure to the best game on the slate, it's right here in New Orleans and Washington. It starts and ends with Russell Westbrook and Bradley Beal on the Washington side for me. And in that top end range, when we're looking at Jokic, we're looking at Doncic, we're looking at Embiid, Kyrie, Vooch, KD, Julius Randle, any one of these guys, Zion is the one that really sticks out to me because people are going to have a hard time paying 10K for somebody when he's surrounded by such good players like that.
Names like that. Yeah.
That's it. Exactly. Yeah. Right. And even then, even when we're talking about a possible pivot, right? It's Vooch is out there at 9,700 with no Zach LaVine tonight against a terrible Memphis frontcourt. Joval cannot defend. right? So this is a spot where Vooch ends up taking on a role similarly to what he did in Orlando the entire season, right? Now, he is now the entire offense. And you could even look there for value plays. Thomas Satoransky is now questionable. You could take flyers on guys like Denzel Valentine. Denzel Valentine is minimum price. Put yourself in the Chicago coaching spot. Who's going to score other than Vooch tonight? Okay, you have Patrick Williams that could put the ball in the hoop. Who else is going to actually score? Thaddeus Young cannot play 36 minutes and drop 40 points. That was 10 years ago. That was Thad Young in Indiana. Like, who else is going to go out there and really score? Satoransky, even if he plays, that's not his game. He drops 10 a game, and really he's a good defender, and he ends up dishing the rock. So somebody's got to score out there. Denzel Valentine ends up taking over that Jordan Clarkson type of role tonight. You end up taking flyers on guys like this. There's so many good spots in all these value plays. So if you're not going up to Vooch, you can go all the way down and end up getting some value plays there. It's all about mix and matching tonight. On FanDuel, I'm likely playing Vooch, just because you have one center to play and there's no power forward center dual eligibility. You can end up getting Vooch and Zion, for example, in the same build over there. Whereas here, it ends up being a little bit tougher when we're talking about the Khem Birches and the Isaiah Stewarts and a bunch of other guys that are the value spot in that center position on DraftKings.
So real quick question on Michael Porter Jr.
I like Michael Porter Jr. So my exact piece on Michael Porter Jr. today was this is what I wrote for Denver's last game. And he ended up dropping 25 and 10. I talked about him being now the secondary scoring option, number 2, right behind Nikola Jokic, with Jamal Murray, unfortunately, going down for the season with a torn ACL. And he dropped 25 and 10 and 46 DraftKings points. His price didn't move, not a single dollar. Lather, rinse, repeat. It's just as good as a matchup for him, if not better.
Hard to believe it didn't move. That's kind of
it didn't move at all. And this is again where we're talking about the mid range. When I say that I'm not flirting with the mid range tonight, I mean that the 5.5 to 6.5K range, where it's like, you have, I think it's 6,600 per position when you open up DraftKings or FanDuel, anything like that, whatever the exact number is. If you could build the most balanced build possible, that's where I'm not going. But this 7.5 to 8.5K range, the Michael Porter Jr.'s, the CJ McCollums, the Fred VanVleets, that's where you could end up getting a lot of good plays. Similarly, how we did yesterday with Jaylen Brown and Colin Sexton. Colin Sexton was 7,500, Jaylen Brown was 8,100. It was the exact same thing there, right? So tonight on a slate like this, where Houston plays no defense, I'm definitely intrigued by Michael Porter Jr. It's just, again, he's not going to be a priority for me where, I end up saying, okay, let me build out my core 5. I'm going to put in Michael Porter Jr. It's not going to be to that extent. But if I have the luxury to end up playing him as one of my last guys in, especially on FanDuel, where you have to roster 2 small forwards, guys like Michael Porter Jr., guys like Brandon Ingram, the ones that are in that upper 7.5 to 8.5K range, there's a lot of guys in good spots for sure.
So last thing before we go here, NBA DFS Preview, windailysports.com is where you can check it out. You can check out the Ghost Gems, join the Discord chat, all of that. Before we go, because there seems like there are so many options, top options, value options, all of it. There's so many to go through. Where can somebody make a mistake on a site like this? Because I feel like since there is so much, is there a way that you can make a mistake and then end up, putting in the wrong lineup?
By overdoing it on a single team. On a slate like this, where, if it was, I would say it was probably closer to January or February, where we started having 8-man rotations a lot of the times, where, teams were dealing with COVID cases and a ton of injuries. It was, a short off season. It was normal. It's what we expected in January, February, probably like 2-3 weeks into the season is when it really started. When you end up having that one team that has an 8-man rotation, that's when you could say, okay, I'm going to play for Oklahoma City Thunder tonight. That's when we were playing guys like Darius Baisley and, all players like that. It's okay to play them when they are the only roster on the entire slate when they have an 8-man rotation. You could end up loading up on 3 or 4 of those guys. That's fine. But when you end up having a slate like this, where you have multiple 8 to 9-man rotations, some of which have 4 out of 5 starters out in Detroit and Toronto, for example, I don't feel the need to play 3 Pistons or 3 Raptors tonight. It's just you could end up that's where you could end up overdoing it, because in that case, where if they're all doing well, it's likely because a guy like Fred VanVleet is not doing well, and that's where you're taking a risky gamble, right? So if you end up hoping that Malachi Flynn, Utah, and DeAndre Bembry end up doing really well, all 3 of them together, it's because Fred VanVleet is not doing well, and that's just, say that out loud. It's gonna make your stomach turn. You know what I mean? So that's where you don't have to overdo it on a single team. You grab 1 or 2 Pistons, you grab 1 or 2 Raptors max, because there's so many teams in good spots with depleted rosters that the one mistake that you can make tonight is loading up and putting all your eggs in one basket on one rotation.
Sounds like great advice. Also good advice. Get yourself a chicken McNugget or 20 here on Friday night. It's Fajita Friday. So look, if you have the fajitas, fine. But if the fajitas aren't there, we're good with going some chicken McNuggets, get yourself some sweet and sour sauce, and have yourself a good night. Ghost, wonderful job throughout the week. It was a great week for you. You crushed it. So congratulations. A nice little bow tie on a great week for you. That is it for the NBA DFS preview show here at WinDailySports.com. We'll be back Monday, 5:45 with another NBA DFS preview. WinDailySports.com.